This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. It's Friday, it's peeing down and Liverpool have added another trophy to the cabinet. All is right with the world. I'm Joe Rimmer and alongside me I've got two fine gentlemen to discuss what was a massive week for the Reds and a big weekend to come. On my left is a man who has spent most of the week partying on a boat down the Bosphorus. Dan Kay, how are you, Dan?
I'm all right. I'm still a little bit husky. There was some singing and carousing, but it was all for the right reasons. Yeah. And sorry I couldn't bring the lovely sunny weather from Istanbul back with me, but I've at least brought, hopefully, a bit of the sheen of victory.
It looked like a cracking trip down on that boat down the river.
It really was. I mean, what a fantastic idea. Massive credit to everybody involved. I think it really was the initiative of the Turkish Liverpool Supporters Club, but obviously they would have been in touch with the guys over here because Jamie Webster was on there, and it was such a brilliant idea that a few of us got to thinking afterwards, hang on, we've got a river right by us, why don't we do it a little bit more often? So maybe that's one to be discussed.
Party
at some
boats
point.
down the Mersey.
Maybe not every week, but I think for special occasions, why not?
Yeah, well,
anyway, out there.
Did you enjoy that intro more than Theo's most pointless name? I didn't know that he thought your name was so pointless.
Dan Kay, the man with the most pointless name in Echo Sport. It's the same number of syllables as his actual name, DK. How are you? Wow.
Well, I mean, it did make me kind of re-examine my life, to be honest. Yeah, a lot of things. But I feel I've come through the other side of it. And I'll be having words with Theo about that afterwards. It hasn't really sunk in, even a week on.
For the record, I kind of like your name. It's quite snappy, Dan Kay. I like it.
Well, I haven't really got much choice in the matter, Joe.
That's true.
Lumbered with it, so you get on, you make the best of it.
Well, on my right is a man who deserves a big build-up today.
He does.
After a momentous week. He is our new reigning, defending, undisputed Liverpool correspondent, both home and away. You all know him as Tall Paul Gorst.
Hello, Joe. I don't think I've ever been given such a big build-up. I might use that as like me text message telling me something. Yeah. It's been a big week for you. A big week for a big man. Yes. Merseyside's Man Mountain, apparently, according to Neil Docking, which immediately stuck in my Twitter bio. I liked it that much. Yeah, been up in Istanbul with Ian Doyle, haven't I? What dreams are made of. Well, Dan's been going down the Bosphorus singing LA. I was stuck in a hotel room tapping away content.
Been there.
Yeah, it was a good few days. Good to get stuck into the European games, and great to see Liverpool bring the Super Cup home. It's a tense game. Literally,
before you get into the game, look, we all want to talk about the game. But first of all, Gorsty, I need to take a little bit of time to talk about you. I know ever the modest man, you're trying to change the subject straight to the game, but we need our audience to get to know our new Liverpool correspondent, both home and away. You are James Pearce's heir apparent.
Yes, big shoes to fill.
So the listeners know you as Tall Paul Gorst. Yeah. And everyone but your stepdad seems to enjoy that that moniker. But tell us a bit more about yourself. You're a Liverpool lad. I've got a few questions for you. So yeah.
What can I say? I've been at the Echo coming up to 3 years in October. Absolutely delighted to be able to step into James Pearce's shoes. Big shoes to fill, but he's a 10.5 and I'm an 11, so we're all right on that front. What can I say? It's just a dream job, one that I've pretty much always had my eye on since I decided that I wanted to be a sports journalist, which is probably over half my life ago now, thinking back. I was quite fortunate early on to realise what I wanted to do with my career, and finally being allowed the chance to do so. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we go over the next weeks, months and probably years, or hopefully years.
Okay, so some quick fire questions then, just to discuss you following Liverpool. Favourite game?
Istanbul,
easy.
2005, not 2019, although it was decent.
Favourite ever player?
Robbie Fowler.
Yeah,
absolutely loved him. From a similar area to me, grew up playing alongside his younger brother. So I know his family, and just for him to just be as good as he was at that time, I loved him, and I always will. Hero.
Was he the man whose name was on the back of your shirt when you were growing up?
Fowler 23 and I'm Fowler 9.
Yeah, I like it. Favourite goal?
Oh, now you've got me. As soon as you said that, first there's two that come to my head, and they were pretty meaningless goals in the grand scheme of things, but Suarez's goal against Norwich with the outside of his foot from about 40 yards, and Gerrard's one against Middlesbrough from a similar distance. Those two have just come off the top of my head. Michael Owens in the FA Cup final, the second one, just because that won the trophy. But if you give me 10 minutes, I could think of hundreds of brilliant goals.
You're not getting 10 minutes. We will talk about the game. That is Paul Gorst, your new LFC correspondent. Go and follow him at PT Gorst.
At PT Gorst, yeah.
Yeah, and you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on it all. No?
I'm on the lot,
Yeah, so give him a follow. He is going to be the man to follow from now on. Right, well, the European champions are now the Super European champions, having won the Super Cup on Wednesday night. Go on, Gorsty, you were there. It wasn't the easiest games, it's fair to say, for Liverpool, but they got the job done, and there's another trophy in the cabinet.
There is, and I watched Chelsea against Manchester United and thought Liverpool won't have much to worry about. It's a new look Chelsea with a new manager. He's given plenty of loanees a chance, and it's a completely different feel about Chelsea this season. So I thought Liverpool, with all the continuity and all the stellar names that they have, would go and steamroll them, if I'm honest, and maybe I'd underestimated the team who finished third last season and won Europa League a little bit, because they came out and they were the better team for the first half. Got their goal and were good value for it, to be honest. And I thought Liverpool possibly need something here just to kind of remind people that it's not all doom and gloom. They're not a spent force by any stretch of the imagination. As soon as Roberto Firmino comes on, he transforms the game instantly, doesn't he? And shows Liverpool that there isn't any kind of replacement for him in their squad, or probably in world football. Oxlade-Chamberlain was given his first start since April 2018, and it showed he was rusty. Nothing to worry about. He was just, he's going to have to start at some point, isn't he? Make his first start. And
just to interrupt, to be fair to him, he did have a fantastic touch and ball out to Salah to set him up for one
little
chance.
Cameo moment, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, other than that was excellent. But other than that, it was a tough 45 minutes for him. The ball was bouncing off him, and he wasn't quite holding it. And when Firmino come on in his place, the change was instant, and Liverpool got themselves back into it. It was a long goal night in Turkey. It ended up going to penalties, didn't it? And Liverpool held the nerve and eventually come away with a 5-4, which is probably a bit of a rare scoreline for penalty shootouts, isn't it? And Liverpool lift the Super Cup, and now they are the undisputed kings of Europe.
I've got more to ask you, Dan, but just come to think of it, seeing as Paul mentioned it then. Penalties. Have teams got better at penalties? I remember when I was growing up, penalty shootout could end like 3-2 or even 2-1. But now,
it's funny you say that.
It's
funny you say that, because only a couple of days ago I was watching the LFC TV and Charlie Adams' penalty came. Yeah. Well, I think it was like Kenny's best games. And obviously it's become a bit of a one of those things people pluck out for a laugh every so often. Is it still in orbit? Is it knocked a satellite out? Whatever. But what I forgot about it, because I think they showed most of the shootout, was that was actually the third penalty of the shootout, and it was still 0-0. Gerrard missed for us, and then I think Reina saved from one of them, and then Charlie Adams steps. I was like, well, it'd be 1-0 now surely, and he blazed it. Yeah. Now the standard of the penalty competition on Wednesday was well, on the face of it was very decent. The first 9 were scored, and then obviously Adrian saved from Tammy Abraham. I think our third and fourth penalties were maybe slightly fortuitous. The ones from Trent and
Divock
Origi. Yeah. Thankfully, on both of them, Kepa died full length, seemed to get something on it, but there was just enough pace to take it over the line. I mean, Mo Salah took our fifth, didn't he? Now, I think I'm right in saying Salah still only missed one penalty for Liverpool against Huddersfield in his first season game that we went on to win comfortably anyway at Anfield. And he's probably edging up towards maybe 6, 7, 8 penalties taken for us now. Now, the vast majority of them, including the one, by a mile, the most important one in Madrid, you can look back on them and say, as it happens, his one on Wednesday was pretty good. But some of them have been a little bit sketchy. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't say if it flew in the top corner or how near the goalkeeper got. All that matters is that it went in. I think you're right, though. I think the standard of penalty taking has improved, and you'd expect it to, because any team really worth its salt, I think, should do practice. I mean, there's always been this argument you can't replicate the pressure or the stress of the situation, but I don't necessarily. Well, I'd agree with that to a certain degree, to a certain point, but the whole basis of practice is that you keep doing what you hone your skills to such a point that it becomes muscle memory, and that enables you to handle pressurized situations if your technique is strong enough to cope with that. And I haven't heard from Klopp whether they were practising before the Super Cup, but I can't think of too many penalty competitions when we haven't missed one. Even the first one I remember is Rome '84. Steve Nicol blazed one over the bar to kick it off with. So
2021 then.
I was just entering my early 40s then. I was 2 days after my 7th birthday. You cheeky little scamp.
Oh, well, sorry, you finished on that. You're not speaking to me anymore.
Well, no, I've given you my view on how penalty competitions improved.
Do you remember the one the other year? Was it Middlesbrough? It ended like 16, 17.
Do you know what I remember more than anything else about that, Joe? Sorry to jump in, but Paul, very quickly. I was covering it in the office, and I think you were covering it from home.
Yeah.
And was it 15, 16?
Yeah, I was.
And I remember a capped up tweet from you going, "Can someone please win? I want to go to bed." And it cracked me up at the time. Sorry.
Well, I often crack you up.
The only thing I remember from that, other than it going on for about 2 hours, was didn't the keepers take theirs and score as well?
Yeah.
And it eventually went back round again.
Rotation,
It wasn't so much. I remember. I realised that people didn't tune in today to listen to us talk about Middlesbrough in the League Cup in 2015 or whatever it was. But one of the things I do remember about that is that all of the penalties were really good. So I remember like Sacco stepping up and burying it into the bottom corner, and Lucas doing the same, and thinking someone, even if they score, will take a bit of a rubbish penalty. But everyone was taking really good ones, so it does feel like they've gotten better at it.
To be honest, you know what? I never remember penalty shootouts. Like, once they're done, I've really got to rack my brain.
Remember Istanbul like that.
Yeah. You remember those, obviously, but generally, like, I'd struggle to tell you what the penalties were like against Cardiff, for instance.
I can't remember Cardiff.
Only because I seen it the other day on the telly.
Yeah.
I was actually at Liverpool had a tremendous record at penalty shootouts. Obviously, Rome '84 was the first time one was in a final. We'd never actually lost one until 1993 against Wimbledon away in the League Cup, and I was there sadly on an open terrace in December at bloody Selhurst Park.
What age were you then? About 40?
You are cruising for a bruise in you, sunshine. So Liverpool have had a decent record in them over the years. We've never touched wood lost one that really mattered. There was the Northampton one, wasn't there, with Roy Hodgson in the rain?
Yeah, of course. I was there. I was front row for that one.
I was at home.
It was horrific.
Not a bit like Paul at that stage. It wasn't a big enough game for me to come out. No.
Well, Gorsty, what do you think went wrong for Liverpool in the first half? It was a difficult first half. They started, I think, first 10 minutes or so. They were pretty decent, and then Chelsea just seemed to take over. Lots of talk, although Klopp denied it today, that Liverpool play with a higher defensive line. Midfield didn't really seem to gel that much. I thought Milner was on the periphery of the game quite a lot. What do you think went wrong for Liverpool, or is it just a case of rhythm?
Bit of everything. Fitness-wise, let's face it, it's still pre-season, is it, for many of the players? It's only the third game of the season. If you're counting the Super Cup, the Community Shield, I think it was just a case of a team finding their rhythm. And let's not forget, Chelsea are still a decent side, aren't they? They've got plenty of excellent players, and I thought they shaded it for the first half. I don't think there was anything too concerning for Jurgen Klopp. It was just one of those nights where maybe the midfield was a little bit off the pace, and N'Golo Kante was the best player on the pitch, wasn't he? And
brilliant.
Frank Lampard said the day before that it didn't look like he was going to be starting, and then he did, and he wasn't subdued by any stretch. He was the best player. Liverpool just come up against a top midfielder on the night, and they've eventually been able to grind out the win. So I wouldn't say that there was anything to be too worried about. I thought Andy Robertson was below his usual impeccable standards. His crossing was a bit slack, which is not like him. Obviously, they were lacking the balance down the right with Joe Gomez, who doesn't quite offer what Alexander-Arnold does going forward. As I say, the midfield was maybe a little bit off it, and there was no Roberto Firmino for the first half, so a number of extenuating circumstances, but I don't think Klopp will be too worried in the long run. Liverpool just kind of finding their rhythm defensively.
Any worries about that defensive line? I mean, I know Klopp saying that they haven't changed it. I think the point he was trying to make is individual games mean that we play different systems, and I think for Chelsea perhaps they looked at Olivier Giroud and thought, well, he won't get in behind. He did.
Got a great record against Liverpool.
But he has got a very good record. But he's not the sort of forward that you expect him to be making runs in behind. But Dan, do you have any worries about that defensive line and what's going on at the moment?
Not especially. I mean, I think another thing to mention there is that, certainly for the last couple of games, really, if you look at pre-season as well, the kind of set in stone back five of Alisson, Trent, Van Dijk, and then one of Gomez or Matip and Robertson has hardly played together. Because earlier in the pre-season, obviously, people were still away on international duty. And then obviously Alisson has only played half an hour because he got injured last week against Norwich. I think Klopp said himself, it might have been this morning or after the games, that if you actually look at things, they're not that dissimilar to where we were this stage of last season, right at the start. It takes time to get that rhythm, to get that understanding. It's a team and a squad, but also a defence that's evolving and still learning the best ways to adapt and accommodate each other. I also think as well that the setup of the midfield didn't particularly help us in the first half.
I don't think it did either.
On Wednesday night. I'm big fans of both James Milner and Jordan Henderson, but not necessarily in the same team. And I read one report after the game that basically said the way it was set up, there was times when Firmino was almost like a one-man midfield and he was getting overrun a bit, which kind of puts into some kind of context. I didn't actually see who it was, but I noticed we had a story this morning where one ex-Liverpool player was saying Fabinho was playing like he had lead in it.
Yeah, it was Graham Souness.
Was it?
Yeah.
But I think that was slightly unfair in terms of, I think you're right. I think at times he was isolated. And I think, Paul, that underlined how important, say, Gini Wijnaldum is in that midfield, because although
his energy
at times he seems quieter, he's got good energy. He sort of knits things together, doesn't he? And almost allows Liverpool to employ Fabinho deeper, Wijnaldum in the sort of middle, and then one more advanced. Yeah. What did you think of the midfield?
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit sluggish, and I agree with Dan to an extent as well about Milner and Henderson being in the same team. I'd probably class those two alongside Wijnaldum as similar in terms of their energy that they bring, and they cover a lot of ground, don't they, and put in a lot of work, and that's what's required for the Liverpool midfield. They're not a midfield three that are asked to go and create, later on a play for the strikers in the same way a Manchester City midfield three might be, because Liverpool's creativity comes from wide with Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. So if you're going to be in a Liverpool midfield and a Jurgen Klopp midfield, you've got to work your socks off, and maybe at this stage the fitness levels isn't quite there, because it's still, as I say, it's not far removed from pre-season, as it were. Quite a few of the players miss games. So there are a number of issues as to why the midfield was a little bit off the pace, but I think eventually they'll get up to speed, and I've got no huge concerns long term. No. But certainly on the night, Chelsea were better the first half, definitely. Firmino did come on, and Liverpool got back into it very well, but it was an even game. Liverpool have basically won it through holding the nerve, haven't they, and spot kicks. It could have went either way, and you wouldn't have had many complaints if it did.
A couple of things I just want to pick up on. First of all, I think that, I don't know whether you guys agree, I think Naby Keita was nailed on to start that game. Had he been fit.
It's really unfortunate, isn't it, the way he just keeps picking up these little niggles every time he looks like he's gonna, because came on at the Charity Shield.
He looked very good. Yeah,
you just feel like he can just get a run of games and stay fit. He's on the cusp of being the player that we all thought and hoped we were getting.
He feels like someone who could be the difference maker, doesn't he, in this team? It's something that they perhaps don't really have in any other player in midfield.
Yeah, they don't have a player like him. I think one thing I noticed when he come on in the Community Shield was his ability to carry it. Not many other Liverpool midfielders do it. No. Carry it 15, 20 yards, get the team up the pitch and keep hold of the ball. And he's also willing, more than perhaps anyone else in the midfield, to play straight passes into the front three rather than maybe looking sideways or wide. He very much sees it and he wants to go forward on the front foot, and Liverpool need that at times. It's just a shame that every step forward is just taken or met with a step back with just niggling injuries, and he's never really had the chance to take flight. And he's missing tomorrow. He's got like a muscle injury on his hip, and it's just a case of trying to get him fit and keeping him fit.
Doesn't sound like a bad one, does it?
It doesn't, no. But I was there actually in Vodafone Park on Tuesday when midway through the open training he just kind of walked off to no fanfare, and it was a bit of a, well, where's he gone? He got assessed, and then it was decreed that he's picked up the injury and he'd miss Wednesday. And then I thought he might be in contention actually for tomorrow, but Klopp's confirmed today that he won't be, and I suppose he'll be looking at Arsenal now a week tomorrow and pinpointing that as his possible comeback. But yeah, it's a shame, and Liverpool could really do with getting him in the team fit and seeing what he can do.
Definitely. This is the thing that annoys me. granted, both of you were there, so thinking about it, you might not have picked up on this, but anyone who's listening who watched it at home, it doesn't half annoy me that when Liverpool employ an offside trap, or any team for that matter, employ an offside trap and do it well. Chelsea had the ball in the net twice, 2 clear offsides, and on commentary they're saying how lucky Liverpool were. Well, that's a good piece of defending, isn't it? And in days gone by, the flag would have gone up and there'd have been offside, the ball would never have gone in the net, and Klopp said something along the same lines today. It's annoying, isn't it?
I think it's something that we're going to have to get used to, because obviously with VAR now being very much adopted, the linesmen and lineswomen, whenever they're used, have been instructed that to let play develop and don't put the flag up straight away. I mean, you always kind of wonder, I'm a big cricket fan, if they have these things called soft signals. Is there some way of identifying that? Probably not. I mean, I and others would argue there's arguably already too much technical interference in football. I think it's just something that we are going to have to get used to. But you're right, it's not lucky. Liverpool, at the end of the day, they've played the offside trap, they've caught it out. I think it's just one of these things that all teams, all defenders now are going to have to be aware of. Still play your offside trap, but when you've relied on your ability to get it right, be prepared to chase back, because until basically the move comes to an end, the flag might not go up, and no matter how well honed your offside trap is, every so often you might get it slightly wrong. So at least give yourself a chance of getting back and salvage it. It's going to be a work in progress. I think over the next couple of weeks and months, we're going to see a few incidents that could be kind of filed under teething troubles, and not just for Liverpool either. Yeah.
Before we move on from the Super Cup and start looking ahead towards Southampton, can we both agree, or all agree, that the Super Cup is a massive competition? As soon as you win it, it's a massive competition. If they'd not won it on Wednesday night, it wouldn't have meant anything. But it's massive, isn't it? Come on, it is a big competition. I love it.
It's the third biggest European competition you can win, isn't it?
That's a fact. That's a fact.
It's true. The most important thing about the Super Cup is, similar to the Community Shield, is just being in it. Liverpool were in as European champions. Liverpool were in the Community Shield as nothing. They just finished second as Man City won everything.
Well, that's the thing about the Community Shield, isn't it? That feels a little bit different, is that you can finish second and be in the Community Shield and you haven't won anything, whereas the Super Cup, you've had to have won a major trophy this season. Yeah,
exactly. It's pitting the Europa League winners against the Champions League winners, and then it's, we'll see who the real kings are. So I can see why people might not think it's the biggest trophy to win, but Liverpool were in it, so why not go and win it? And that's exactly what they've done. It's another trophy in the cabinet, and more than anything, I think it just continues to foster that winning mentality, might you call it?
Exactly. Winning can become a habit, can't it? And at the end of the day, at the end of our football supporting career, you're always going to put league titles and European cups above cups like the Charity Shield and the Super Cup. But the way I look at it is, number one, it kind of consolidates and almost kind of like reinforces the success that you've had a few months before that's enabled you to qualify for it. And it's like a reminder of kind of like, the reason, happy memories of the reason why you're here is because you've done something great in the past.
You've got a prepared statement here.
Well,
Dan Kay is making a prepared statement. Not quite a prepared statement,
but there was one or two little facetious comments on one of my Facebook posts earlier on today from an old pal who's an Evertonian. He was trying to say that he called it the fake Charity Shield. And I said, well, it's the European Charity Shield. What's fake about it? And he said, well, because there's a real one already. Everyone knows you can't have more than one real thing, otherwise there'd be chaos, which is nonsense, really, because pretty much every league around Europe has a Super Cup, a Charity Shield, where the league winners play the cup winners. So this is essentially just European football's version of it. But the way I summed it up in terms of the way I see it, it is a little bit of froth at the end of the day, but it's the kind of froth you want to be involved in, because you have to have done something good to have had that cup of coffee plonked in front of you.
There you go.
There you go.
Dan,
Cook metaphors with Dan.
Yeah. What was the one that you used that time? The straw that.
Well, I was Bobby Firmino. I thought we were going to get onto it because obviously he had a huge impact on the game.
Sorry, I did actually have him in my head to talk about. Go on,
I believe it is. It's a phrase that apparently came from American sports, but it's very, very transferable. The straw that stirs the drink, basically the man that makes it happen, the catalyst.
If we do have any American listeners, do let us know whether that is a known phrase.
No, it is. I've googled it before.
The straw
that stirs the drink, and to me, that's what Bobby is. Other players will get more headlines. Oh yeah, you don't like Bobby, do you? No. Even though, I've heard him call himself that though. And the Brazilians call him it. Do you think it's a bit of an affectation, do you?
It's an Everton thing, isn't it?
How is it an Everton thing?
Bobby Martinez.
Bobby Brown shoes?
Bobby Brown shoes.
Nah.
And we took the...
You need to get over that.
We took the mick out of them for that. And then now we
I've
give
got
the
a
ball to
confession
Bobby
for
and
you
he will
then, Joe,
score.
because I know you don't like that nickname. He was in the mix zone after the Norwich game and he walked past and I called him Bobby. I said, Bobby, can I have a minute? And he looked at me, me and Connor Dunn, flashed me that gleam and smile and then walked away. No, he
doesn't talk to anyone though, does he?
No, I didn't expect him to, but I did call him Bobby. Because I know that
the point is he didn't blank you though, did he?
I'm glad he didn't.
No, not at all.
I'm glad he didn't give you any quotes.
For me, he remains Liverpool's most important player. And I think the last, certainly Wednesday night and the last couple of weeks, I thought it was excellent in the Charity Shield when he come on.
Yeah.
And I've got real high hopes from this season. I just think he's a fantastic footballer. I think we're so lucky to have him. And I get the impression he likes being under the radar a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think he necessarily wants to be the big all singing, all dancing superstar in the way that like Salah and others are. But huge fan, and here's hoping we've got a lot more still to come from Roberto.
It's funny actually because he wasn't great in the Europe. I know he's come back from injury, but in the European Cup final he wasn't that good.
Or the one year before,
Kiev. And he's come back, and he started the season like a house on fire, isn't it?
Whereas the summer tournaments, arguably the likes of Mane and Salah really could have done without them and Keita to get themselves rested, because he missed basically the last 6 weeks of the season. I actually think it did him a bit of good. I saw a couple of parts of the semi and the final of the Copa America, and I just remember thinking at Wembley, the Charity Shield, wow, Bobby's back. This is the
Firmino. He looked sharp straight away.
That we know and loved, and the couple of games since then, he's looked right on it, and hopefully another big performance from him at St Mary's tomorrow. Okay, well,
I can't believe we've spoken about the Super Cup for this long. We're about 20 minutes into the pod, and we've not mentioned Adrian, who is a big story. Obviously, saved the winning penalty. Paul, it's not all good news, is it? He essentially saved the winning penalty, was celebrating, and some lunatic fan ran on the pitch and two-footed him, and he's now a doubt for tomorrow at Southampton. Bit of a mad evening for him.
Yeah, such a bizarre event and a bizarre way to get injured. They're all celebrating, aren't they? And the video's only come to light today, which...
Yeah, if you haven't seen the video, go and watch the video. It's just nuts.
Yeah, it's on our... It's on our Twitter account, isn't it? Yeah. So the fan runs on to celebrate. Must run. It's basically he's not coming from in front of them. He's coming from the right of them. So he must run 30, 40 yards. Gets there and slips, and basically falls into them all and injures Adrian's ankle.
He almost took Gomez out as well.
He did. Joe Gomez said that after the game. He sort of said something about a fella hurtling into him, and I didn't quite know what he was on about. I couldn't quite catch it, but that's what he was talking about. So Adrian has got a swollen ankle. It was extensively rehabbed on the flight home. The physio Lee Nobes, is it? Hopefully he can play. Adrian himself doesn't really see the fuss. Apparently he thinks he'll be okay. So hopefully it is just a bit of an issue that means that he'll be fit enough to play. I expect him to play. It might just be an issue of keeping goal kicks short, but I don't see a scenario tomorrow where Liverpool are relying on Andy Lonergan to start and they've got Kevin Kelleher on the bench.
Look, I'm not going to be a big party pooper here, but again. But I do feel like with Adrian, there's been a bit of a rewriting of history in terms of I had people before the game talking to me as if Adrian is this brilliant goalkeeper, and I know we all want him to do well. He's coming in now, now that Alisson's injured. But Dan, he's a good Premier League goalkeeper. But for me, he's still fairly average. He's a middle of the road Premier League goalkeeper. I don't think he's any better than that. But the one thing he has got, and I'll give him this, and I want to know what you think about it, is his mentality. He seems to have a good mentality. As Paul's just said, he doesn't see the fuss about this ankle injury. He just wants to play. He seems to step in a big pressure game and do well. You know, he backed himself in the penalty shootout. He seems to be a good character.
Well, and I think that's why he's been brought in, for his mentality, and also for his experience. I watched a bit of the kind of pre-match and post-match, which I'd recorded on the telly when I got home last night. And in Klopp's interview before the game with BT, and he obviously was being asked by Des Kelly about Adrian and being thrust into a pretty big game like that, and he says, well, this is why you buy experience. This is what experience is for. because obviously he hadn't had many training sessions, hadn't really had much of a pre-season, but by all accounts he's in good physical shape. He's 32, I think that's right.
Yeah.
So
he's not quite as old as some of the sort of backup goalkeepers are out there on the market.
How old was Neville Southall when he got wheeled out for Bradford? About 41, 42 at that stage, wasn't he? I'd agree with you. He's a good, solid Premier League level goalkeeper. I mean, you have to wonder what Simon Mignolet's thoughts have been like over the last week or so. With first off, Alisson getting injured last week, and then obviously, when we heard the news about it today, he could have had another medal under his belt, and could be looking at another month or so in the first team. The reality is, hopefully, this is the first injuries Alisson has had for us. We hope there's not going to be many more to come. So it's an awkward one with reserve goalies. You want quality, but it's hard to get sufficient quality when you know that they might only ever play a handful of games of the season. But he did his best for us on. It was a good save as well. It was quite similar to Dudek's saving the winning save. He'd kind of gone to one side, but was aware and alert enough to kick it out with his feet. We haven't talked much about the penalty yet, which I still haven't really seen a very good angle on it.
I thought it was rash from Adrian, but didn't seem to be a penalty. But
it looked very soft. I mean, it was at our end, so I had quite a good view of it in the ground, and it did look like one. But having seen a couple of replays back, virtually everyone said it wasn't a penalty. But in this day and age, goalkeepers need to realise they have to try and stay on the feet more. Yeah. Don't give A, the striker the chance to run into you and go down, and B, the referee the chance to make a decision. Now, you're talking split-second reactions here, and particularly when, at the start of a season when he's hardly played much football. If he had 20 or 30 games under his belt, then maybe he wouldn't have dived in then. But it was I'd say a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10 performance out of him. But whatever happens now, he goes down in history as a man who's helped Liverpool win a penalty shootout and a European trophy, and there's not many that can say that.
He certainly does. If it isn't him tomorrow, what do you reckon, Paul? Andy Lonergan or Caoimhin Kelleher? Caoimhin. I'm trying to work that one out. Kiva O'Neill was hard enough. So I don't know.
I think that's as good as you're going to be able to pull off. That sounds okay to me. Caoimhin Kelleher. Well, it's a tough one, isn't it? The experienced goalkeeper who was on loan at Rochdale last season, or the untried teenager.
He's highly rated, Caoimhin Kelleher, though, isn't he?
Yeah. When Liverpool bought Alisson last year, the feeling was that Kelleher was third choice, and he was above Kamil Grabara in that sense, who's obviously gone on loan to Huddersfield. To be honest, I don't think there'll be a scenario where Klopp will have to choose, but if he does, Lonergan, he's the more experienced pro, might be a little bit more unfazed than making his debut in the Premier League than Kelleher might be, even though Kelleher's obviously got more potential long term. It could be a bit of a crisis, couldn't it, for Liverpool? This no backup keeper. You're relying on your 40-year-old third choice and your teenage youth goalkeeper. At a time when the margin for error is so small, they really can't afford much. So it's going to be a tough one. If you were asking me, I'd go for Lonergan. Dan Lonergan.
I think it would have to be, bearing in mind that, has he played a Premier League game, Lonergan? He's probably played obviously lots of football.
He's never played in the top place.
No. So a big leap of faith for him. I mean, literally since we've been sitting here, I've had a notification off the LFC app. Liverpool are confident. Well, Liverpool are hopeful. Adrian will be available to play for Southampton. So hopefully this is only
full-time Liverpool reporter, both home and away, sitting in here. So yeah,
he would have broken it otherwise, obviously. But that's first with breaking news.
Let's talk Southampton. I don't know about you guys, but I always see Southampton as one of the real difficult away games. Yeah. And I don't know whether it's over the years in my Liverpool watching lifetime, there's been some not nice defeats there. The reverse when they were 2-0 up under Klopp and ended up losing 3-2.
And I got a couple in.
The 2-0 defeat in Benitez's first season. Crouch
scored, yeah.
1-0 defeat when they had the black away. I think Reece scored no goal.
Reece's own goal, yeah.
Yeah, that was 2-0, I think. That was when Phil Thompson was might have been going further back. Not long after Souness had left and Roy Evans had took over a pretty horrendous 4-2 defeat when we were about 4-0 down after an hour.
At the Dell.
Going even further back, I think it was the treble year '84, a live televised game when Danny Wallace scored twice against us. So that was, I mean, the Dell. I only went to the Dell once or twice. I think certainly once, and it very much was renowned as one of those tight little grounds. And I think in a general sense, for some teams, St Mary's possibly is a bit more welcoming to play for. It's a fairly generic Premier League stadium to play in, but it's always been one of those awkward little games for Liverpool, and I think last season's fixture summed that up perfectly. In the run-in, there was this spell of games when we had Tottenham and Chelsea and Southampton, but I remember a few of us saying Southampton away is likely to be as hard as any of them, and that's exactly the way it proved. We ended up winning 3-1. But we were 1 down quite early, could have gone 2 down. We were talking about Keita before, and I was just thinking then when we were discussing it, it's unfortunate he's been pulled out of the squad. That was his first goal, wasn't he? He got that header from Trent's cross about 10 minutes before half time, but it was a real slog through that second half. In the end, Mo Salah broke, I think it was 8 or 9 goal scoring. Scored a fantastic solo goal, and in the end Henderson wrapped it up after good work from Firmino down the right hand side. But it was such a hard game. A few people, myself included, kind of fancied Southampton as a bit of a dark horse this season. Hassan Hüttl, the manager, seems to have a bit about him.
The Alpine Klopp.
The Alpine Klopp, that's right. And got himself quite organised. They were badly beaten at Burnley, weren't they, last Saturday, which I think was a bit of a surprise result, but so they will be very much wanting to make up for that.
Just reading one of the lads, Josh Williams, writes for us one of his pieces, and apparently it was very, very even against Burnley. And although it doesn't look that way from the scoreline, I don't think Southampton stunk the place out. Paul, two clubs with a strange relationship, I think it's fair to say. Obviously, there was the massive falling out over Van Dijk.
Yep.
I don't think Southampton were too pleased at the way Liverpool used to almost have a loyalty card for the amount of players that they went and bought from them.
Number one on the speed dial, weren't they?
And I don't think the fans have forgotten that. I think there's still a bit of needle between the fans, but the club's relationships have since improved, haven't they? Yeah,
the Southampton fans, it's fair to say there's no love lost there because they took Dejan Lovren, Ricky Lambert, Adam Lallana, who was the captain at the time. They absolutely hated that, and
Nathaniel Klein,
Mane, and then it plummeted, didn't it, when the whole Van Dijk thing come out, when Liverpool were accused of having conversations they shouldn't have been. So, no love lost between the supporters. It's a tricky place to go. I agree with Dan. It's one of those places where you always have a little bit of trepidation going into it, and I think tomorrow will be no different. I think Jurgen Klopp might have to make changes just because he's just played a midweek game at 120 minutes in August, which is just ludicrous.
31 degree temperature. It was so humid in that ground as well.
This is the 4th game of the season tomorrow for Liverpool, and they'll be playing before teams who've even played twice. It's just such is this season. So I'd imagine he might make 1 or 2 changes, particularly in midfield. I think we could even see Adam Lallana start. So it's a difficult place to go, but I think Liverpool now have got a little bit about them where they don't come unstuck at these venues. They very much dig in and grind it out and get the result that they need, whether it's with or without a performance that justifies it. Liverpool have certainly done enough of that over the last season, haven't they? So I think we might be seeing another situation, but I wouldn't be expecting a top performance of a team that you just look at them and think, they could be champions, because it's not going to be like that every week, and tomorrow will be one of them.
Southampton will look to take advantage, won't they? I think Hassan Hüttl spoke yesterday in his press conference about how he said he was pleased that they played 120 minutes, but not because he said not because of the tiredness, but because he got longer to analyse them, which was interesting. But I think he's not daft. He's a good manager. He plays a very similar style to Klopp, and I think he will be looking to put Liverpool under a lot of pressure early doors. Won't he?
Absolutely. It's their first home game of the season. They will be wanting to put on a good show in front of their own supporters, particularly obviously having lost heavily away last week. I mean, it's similar way, kind of like when I saw the result on Sunday afternoon, United 4 Chelsea 0. I remember thinking, well, that probably doesn't really help us in terms of Wednesday night, because obviously they're going to want to show a reaction to that. Like Paul said, for me, one of the most encouraging things about this Liverpool and over the last year to 18 months or so, and we saw it again on Wednesday night when I thought Chelsea shaded the game. Chelsea, the better team, probably lost on Wednesday. Apart from that 20-25 minute spell after half time, and obviously little flurries here and there, Chelsea just seemed play with slightly more authority, slightly more command. But Liverpool walked away with the cup. And that's because this team finds a way to get it done, finds a way to win. And that is as encouraging a sign as any fan could hope to wish for. You're not going to play well every match over a 60-odd game season, but it's about doing what is necessary to get the results you need to move forward. And 100% agree with Paul tomorrow. I hope I'm wrong. I do see us walking away with a 3 or 4-0 victory, but I'm hopeful and confident that Liverpool will find a way to get it done. It might not be pretty, it might be tense, it might be scrappy and ugly, but this team has that edge of pragmatism about it now that will do what is necessary to get themselves over the line.
Cool. Well, let's finish off with a quick natter about Dejan Lovren, who looks set to stay at the club, Paul. Some developments in his future today.
Yeah, looks like he's going to be staying put. Obviously, there was talks during the week of interest from AC Milan and Roma have been in talks with Liverpool to the point where Lovren missed the Super Cup, didn't he, with illness, succinctly cited on the club's website, but reading between the lines, maybe he wasn't quite as ill as was made out. But yeah, it looks like he's going to be staying. Liverpool have basically grown a bit frustrated and a bit annoyed with Roma's conduct. Liverpool have set the price. We understand that Roma have yet to make an official offer and have been trying to get him a little bit on the cheap through intermediaries, speaking to the club. And Liverpool have had enough. They're walking away and they're going to keep him for the season. So personally, I think it's the right choice. I was a little bit disappointed maybe to hear that Lovren would be going, because I thought that might have left Liverpool a little bit short of centre-backs. He's obviously fourth choice at the moment, but he's a very dependable and experienced one who will play quite a few games this season, I think. So yeah, I think it's the right decision for Liverpool to say no more, and Lovren's going to be staying at Anfield.
He's a funny one, Lovren, isn't he? Because he's another of, and Liverpool have had a few of them, a player who people scream and shout about, but let's face it, if he was in the starting lineup tomorrow afternoon, you wouldn't be worrying, would you? You'd think, well, he's another dependable, solid centre half. He's played in big games, World Cup finals, European Cup finals. He's no mug, is he? And I think keeping him can only help Liverpool's chances this season. When
the news broke on Tuesday that it seemed kind of fairly likely all of a sudden that he was going to be leaving, there was quite a bit of disquiet amongst the Liverpool supporters I was with. Mm-hmm. In that we were going to, with obviously our window having now shut and the European window being open, that we were almost kind of handicapping ourselves and willfully leaving ourselves short. I mean, Paul pointed out that Lovren was at the moment kind of fourth cab off the rank in terms of centre backs, but the third cab off the rank, Joe Gomez, is also one of our main covers for the right back position. Yeah. So
and a left back.
Yeah, and a left back, which I think is where he switched to in extra time when Trent come on, didn't he, on Wednesday? Now, bearing in mind, there is already a feeling that possibly we're a little bit short up front. I'm absolutely not going to get on the high horse and start berating the owners for not spending millions and millions of pounds this summer, but there is a bit of a feeling that we are taking a little bit of a chance in leaving ourselves a little bit light in some areas, which is obviously caveated by the fact, like I said earlier in this podcast, that it's hard for us to get replacements at the minute because our squad is so good, our top team is so good that to get replacements of a similar quality is not as easy as some people make out. So I'm delighted Lovren's staying. I personally, I've got an awful lot of time for the lad. He had a difficult start to his Liverpool career and was written off and kind of pigeonholed with some of the players that were just deemed to be not good enough. He has the occasion, still has the occasional little Lovren moment in him, but he plays with a lot of heart and a lot of quality. This team that we've all enjoyed over the last 18 months, 2 years, getting to 2 European Cup finals. Lovren has played a big part in that. I think he's also very important in terms of just for the kind of the mood of the squad. Obviously, everyone knows he's big mates with Mo Salah. Now, he can't just keep her along just as Salah's mascot, but. No, to me,
Sam Carroll here because he's Adam's mate.
Well, that's true. That's true. But that's another podcast in itself, really. Yeah. But no, I'm delighted Lovren's staying, and over the course of it, we're still only halfway through August, and it seems like virtually every day we're talking about a new Liverpool injury. So, I mean, most important, what Degsy needs to do is get himself fit and stay fit because last season was very, very stop-start for him. Joel Matip has massively come up. Yeah. On the rails, and as far as I'm concerned, is the man in possession. He should be the man starting regularly alongside Van Dijk at the minute. But I've got a lot of time for Lovren, and I think he's still got a big part to play for Liverpool.
Well, can we finish off with a lovely Dan Kay metaphor for Dejan Lovren? You must have something.
Oh God,
he's not quite the straw that stirs the drink, is he? Paul?
No. Wow.
I've realised I've put you on the spot.
You
here,
really...
but you always have something.
Is he the coaster that props the table up or something?
The coaster that props... Do you prop... Oh, I see, yeah, underneath the... Yeah.
It keeps it from
Yeah,
rocking.
I'll go with that one, yeah. Thank you, Paul. You got me out of jail there, mate, because my mind went blank.
The coaster that props the table up, or that stops it from wobbling.
Yeah, that's it.
Nice that. Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. It's a lovely way of ending. We'll be back on Monday to look back at hopefully a decent result at Southampton and then look ahead to Arsenal. So, see you then.